I think she wanted me to have a better life than she had, but I also think her approach was very unhealthy. She lived vicariously through me.
Okay, deep breaths in. Let it out. Everyone stretch, clear your pores, because we're about to descend into another level of hell as we unpack this next bit. So let me set the scene. The year is 2008. Micro vests are in. Gladiator sandals are all the rage, regrettably. I mean, do you know how long it takes to recover from the striped tan lines of those gladiator sandals?
Those aren't socks. Those are his feet.
But I digress. So iCarly is on its second season, and Jannette has ventured into a new industry, music. As if the acting side of the entertainment business wasn't toxic enough already, the music industry, which I have been a part of as a touring musician for several years, might be the worst dumpster fire asswipe of an industry ever concocted by mankind. And
It's not. I'll tell you right now, the way that the mining companies and the mining towns that existed specifically in Colorado during the gold rush periods, far worse. Far worse. That being said, if you look at modern industry, the way modern industries run in America, specifically in America, the music industry is absolute ass and at the top of that list because it legitimately robs you of not just what you own, but what you make. You make something that is shared with the world in a way that is repeatably consumable, right? You can watch TV shows over and over again. You can watch movies over and over again. You can read books over and over again. You can listen to songs over and over again. Why is it that the people who make the songs, if you're writing all the music and you're writing all the lyrics and you're doing all the performing, why don't you own that song? Now, if somebody else is writing the music or writing the lyrics or both and you're performing the song, I'd say, yeah, I see you having to share that song because you owe the profits of that song and the success of that song to other people, not just yourself. Production companies don't do that. Production companies actually just produce the music, put it out there, and you get a pittance. This has been known forever that, like, even when I was a kid, you could go buy a CD and it was like, yeah, for every CD you buy, the band gets something like a nickel or a dime and they have to split that amongst the band members. Like, that's probably an exaggeration, because it depends which artists and bands you're looking at, which labels you're looking at, what time period you're looking at. Like, there are a lot of factors, because I'm sure nobody has the same exact agreement. But they all get fucked. And if you don't think they all get fucked, go look into why Taylor Swift started re-recording old songs and re-releasing old songs as reimagined songs. And her public discourse, and talks about why she was doing that and what her goals were. They do this to everybody. When you're in these bigger companies, especially when you're in the bigger companies, this is exactly how they work. They now own all of your music. They own all of your merchandise. They get to decide the money off of your tours. You get a chunk of it, but be damned if you're getting yours first. And even the rich people from music are getting the shit into the stick on the deal. That's how bad that industry is. Nobody's getting good there except for the corporations.
And I quote, "The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side." Yeet. So in June of 2008, Jannette announced to her literal throngs of adoring fans that she was working on her debut album, releasing her first single 6 months later in 2009, and signing with Capitol Records Nashville. Now, I'm not trying to get,
one of those big labels.
But, a girl wasn't half bad, okay? Y'all can check her out on the platform. You can see the video. She doing her thing, okay? Now, this was the time where television networks almost seemed like they were handing out record contracts. It's like if Oprah was some old white male exec flinging pens around the office while contracts rain down from the heavens. Everybody get the call! You get a record deal! You get a record deal! You get a car! You get a car! You get a record deal!
spend money on taxes. And you got to pay taxes on the car that you got as a gift for free. Your registration fee is now astronomical. Congratulations.
So at this point in her life, Jannette was a full-fledged teenager on a sitcom that was known around the world. Her face graced magazine covers, brand deals, commercials, all of it. Has single-handedly been supporting her family for years, working a career that she didn't even want in the first place, and has been suffering with an ED unbeknownst to anyone except for her mother. Oh, and in case that wasn't enough for a kid to deal with, put it bluntly, Jannette was also being SA'd by her mother.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This story just took an unexpected turn. Well, I guess it's not the right way to put it. The story took an unexpected turn, but not entirely in a, like, unexpected. Okay? I'll explain. Sometimes these ads get copyrighted, and my ad blocker's not catching them. So, I'm going to explain why this took a turn that's a turn that I expected but didn't expect at the same time. I didn't expect it to be the mom. This is something that takes place within this industry, especially with the children, all the time. This has been proven time and time and time again as people grow up from the industry and are able to talk as adults. You look at things that we know about that have also taken place of people like Weinstein. Is it Weinstein? I don't know. I may be saying it the wrong way. I don't know. The thing is, you know who I'm talking about. His shit was also with adults. So no one is safe. You understand me? No one. None. So, like, the fact that this happened, I just assumed was taking place. This just shows how terrible her mom is at being a mom. Like, for the exploitation of her child to make money, the exploitation of her daughter, not only just to make money, but to live an entire lifestyle and work a job from the time of a child, the age of being a child, through being an adult, all to fulfill the mother's dreams and ambitions as a child herself, but didn't do, just forced it on her kid, right? All the way through that, and then making her, enforcing an ED so that she doesn't develop out of the younger roles in casting. All terrible. Every bit of it is terrible. Like, I'm not shocked that her mom did it. It's just not how I expected the story to go, and that's probably because it says Dan Schneider. So I figured Dan Schneider was going to be that aspect of the story, and her mother was going to be everything else. No. I promise you Dan Schneider is part of this facet as well. Her mom being part of it too just adds to the problems of her mother and the trauma of her youth. It's terrible.
Part of the book for me to write about. It was a really emotional experience. I laughed.
I want to say things I can't say.
After I wrote that vignette.
Okay, I want to prepare y'all for this next part because it honestly made me feel sick the first time that I read it. We're going to be talking about reoccurring SA, and while Jannette has willingly shared this information with the public, which is incredibly brave of her, it does not change how horrifying this is. Up until Jannette was 17 years old, her mother, Deborah, and I wish that I was joking here, Deborah insisted on showering her. Like bath time, showering her under the
until she was 17. Okay? Until she was 17, she did this.
Of making sure there were no mysterious lumps or bumps because those could be cancer.
To her mom giving her showers until she was a teenager.
In Jannette's own harrowing words, and this is very sensitive stuff, she gave me chest and V exams until I was 17 years old. These exams made my body stiff with discomfort. I felt violated, yet I had no voice, no ability to express that. In addition to believe any boundary I wanted was a betrayal of her, so I stayed silent.
Every bit of that screams, "Get the wood chipper! Wood chipper! He's gonna eat good."
You know, on a personal
Gonna eat
side
real
note,
good.
as a survivor of SA myself,
Holy
I can't
shit.
imagine what Jannette must have gone through. Like, the abuse alone of having your own mother violate you is legitimately unimaginable. To add on the extra layer of checking for cancer when you've already had to see your mother sick for years at such a young age is like, I don't have words. In an interview discussing this portion of her book, Jannette had this to say.
She referred to them as medical exams on your private parts.
Yes, this was the hardest part of the book for me to write about. It was a really emotional experience. I laughed during the writing of it, and then I cried a lot after I wrote that vignette.
You talk about basically having
Jesus.
out-of-body
The guy, that makes sense, but damn.
out-of-body experiences when this is happening to you.
Yeah.
What do you think was going on?
I've tried to understand, and that didn't lead me anywhere productive. I would just spin my wheels trying to understand my mom's motives.
This continued until you were 17?
Yeah.
And you describe in the book that you felt violated.
Yes, I absolutely felt violated, and eventually accepting that was the most, I think, integral piece to my own healing and recovery.
I want to hold space for this because I don't think that headlines claiming shocking realizations are fully grasping the weight of Jannette's words and lived experience here. Often we hear about stars surviving SA and DV at the hands of their partner, fans, or strangers, but to hear it coming from one's mother feels even more twisted, even though, you know, any SA is abhorrent. Traditionally, when I talk about DV and SA here on this channel, it's not usually referring to the parents as the abusers of the victim. Even when conducting research for this doc, most articles and research are around what one would consider the traditional abuser, often painted as a male abuser or sometimes a father, giving warning signs like keeps track of what you are doing all the time and criticizes you for little things, constantly accuses you of being unfaithful, or discourages you from seeing friends or family or going to school or work, gets angry when drinking alcohol or using drugs, controls all the money you spend. What if your abuser is your mom? It's rarely carved out.
See, and this is part of the problem with this as well, is like all these things that seem like abuse and define abuse in this list, right? You look at these types of things. Some of these things are obviously going to be like, yes, you're one of those, like this, right? There's no reason to ever be doing things like this, or things like this, or things like this, right? So there's things that are just obviously applies to everybody. However, things like this, keep track of what you're doing, not constantly accusing you of being unfaithful specifically, but something like questioning your whereabouts, right? Discourage you from seeing certain friends or family, going to work and school. Like, some of these things are things that a parent is going to do to some extent as a parent. So this is why this becomes like a difficult area to tread when people just start accusing parents of abuse, typically. And it's because, well, they want to know what I'm doing all the time. Well, that's your parent. If they don't know what you're doing through the day, they don't know where you're at during the day, they can't keep you safe. They can't protect you. They can't make sure that you aren't hurt, or that you don't know where to go find you if you don't make it home. They don't know where to go look, right? So, like, certain things a parent's going to just have to do. Clearly her mom's going past it. But I've seen plenty of other instances where people are accused of things, and it turns out that it's literally something like this being used to describe their parent and call them one of these for no reason other than that kid trying to do something, where was it? Dang. I thought there was one of them I saw that said something else. But basically, the kid using something like this, and this is typically by the time they're teenagers, right? Using something like this, or even adults, they always want to know what I was doing all the time. That's a characteristic of those types of people. Like, they're doing this to do something to their parents, and sometimes it's the person making the accusation that is this person. And I've seen some of these things used by those types of people to get their parents in trouble for being parents. It's wild, but it does happen. So it's when you read things like that, you have to really understand that it's not everything listed is an immediate sign of this being the case.
In these discussions, which makes it all the more likely most people don't believe it even happens, which is what makes this especially egregious and sinister when I think about it. So according to RAINN, the United States' largest anti-SV organization, 1 out of every 6 women have been the victim of attempted or completed SA in their lifetime, with 1 in 33 men having experienced the same. 1 in 6 and 1 in 33. So that's an estimated 17% of all women and 3% of all men. And we know these numbers.
We don't know these numbers accurately. We know for a fact that men report and admit to this happening exponentially less often than women do. Exponentially less often. We also know that women do not report these numbers accurately either, that women oftentimes don't report, and we also have instances of people, both sides, making false claims. So it's again, it's something to be careful with when you're dealing with these types of things, because we don't really know the real numbers. It's an estimate based on how many people report that they've never reported. How many people will state anonymously in a poll that they've never reported it? Well, this is an anonymous person, so how trustworthy can we take it? And then they do math off of the poll to extrapolate wider. We don't know the accurate numbers, and we never will, because people oftentimes just simply don't speak about it at all, both ways. We just know that it's even less common for men to disclose when these types of things happen to them than it is for women. So there's something about the fact that it's demasculating, and it's humiliating, and makes a man feel weak amongst his peers, that feeds into this as well. Like, it's a biological response in men.
Numbers are skewed because a vast majority of people, especially men, do not report being SA'd for many reasons, including fear, shame, blocking it out, and a zillion other reasons. And when it comes to maternal abuse, including SA, the figures are even murkier. MDSA, or mother-daughter SA, is one of the least reported forms of SA, often leaving survivors confused or ashamed of what happened to them at the hands of their mother. Jessica Lang, a licensed marriage and family therapist, describes just part of the struggle of discussion on this topic, saying,
I found myself using the acronym MDSA more because it feels like it's not as threatening. Like, when you hear the term of mother, daughter, sexual abuse, you get a visceral reaction, and it makes you so uncomfortable because mothers are revered in our society. We often don't even think of mothers as being sexual beings. So the fact that a mom could be sexually abusing her daughter, it's really hard to stomach, and it does happen.
Jessica Lang.
And culturally, socially, we reinforce that type of thinking for like this not being something that would happen, as she said, because of the fact that we have the stereotypical tropes, right? That within a marriage, the man wants more sex and never gets it because the woman doesn't want to give it to them. So the woman, the wife in the marriage, is withholding and doesn't seem to care all the time, right? According to the trope, the stereotype. Not talking about reality or how this truly is, just this the stereotypical trope. The fact is, when that's what you create, you have this mental image and social perception that takes mothers and makes them non-sexual entities, like she was saying.
Goes on to explain.
And because it happens usually in the context of like caretaking activities such as like bath time, even breastfeeding, things of that nature, like it can be really hard to kind of discern. And also like it's often masked in like, oh, I'm checking your body to make sure that you don't have eczema, polyps. Like it's masked in that way where the person feels like, okay, well, this feels intrusive, but my mom says she's just checking these.
Now, bringing up checking your kid for things being an excuse. I'm sure this does take place. I'm not saying it doesn't. In fact, I'd be willing to put money on the fact that it takes place all the time, and that saying that checking your child is a great cover story for a parent to take, whether it's the mother or the father. It is an excellent, excellent cover story to take. However, if your kid has a history of eczema or having an allergic reaction resulting in rashes from an allergy to something like grass, once again, there are circumstances where that people need to be cognizant of. Like, don't just hear somebody saying, well, I need to check my child, I need to check and make sure that she's not having an eczema issue, or he's not having an eczema issue, or that this rash isn't going to spread from whatever it is. If the kid has that kind of an issue, as a parent, you are going to check. That's not what they're discussing. I'm not trying to take away from it. I'm strictly talking about people who hear people make these statements after watching things like this and absorb some of the knowledge and go, oh, now I can identify who these people are. You have to rein that in, because you may just be criticizing someone who's literally just trying to take care of any actual medical issue that their kid has, and we have no idea, which is what makes it such a great excuse and such a great cover for somebody who is perpetrating these actions. It doesn't mean you need to raise a red flag or something, but if they're saying, oh, well, we need to check for polyps in your breasts to their daughter who's 13 or 16, you might have some questions. Like, does your family have a history of just, like, early onset breast cancer in developing girls in your family or some weird shit? Because, like, how common is it that this takes place in someone that's developing and not even an adult yet? You know, like, certain things don't make as much sense as others, right? So you should be like, what the hell? If they start listing out various things they're searching for, that's probably a good concern. If it's like, nah, I need to check and make sure you don't have ticks because we spent all day out at a lake in the woods, that makes sense, right? But if it's, well, I need to check for ticks, and we should also make sure you don't have any polyps going on, and I also need to check on the eczema, and maybe you have and make sure you don't have any rashes from your grass allergy, and then you should start asking questions, right? Because all of a sudden there's this list of fucking things. What do you mean? And yeah, that list might be valid, but at the same time, it's way less common that you have a list of valid things and not, you have this one issue, let's address it.
So it's okay. It's very, very...
Basically, just be more cognizant of the fact that these are just lists of symptoms and possible identifiers. And you have to check off numerous boxes before you actually have like an oh fuck situation, which clearly Jannette has pretty much all the boxes hit and check marks, right? So in this situation, it's like, oh yeah, this is a problem. I'm just saying for the sake of you have a family member, a friend, you meet somebody, or you just overhear someone in a store, right, passing them in an aisle in a grocery store or something, and you have an instinct to take what you hear and apply it to, oh, that's what that means, though. Don't let yourself jump to the conclusion. Apply some reason and be cognizant, obviously, but don't allow yourself to jump to conclusions that can be condemning like this of people you're not completely sure of the situation around, because it does ruin people's lives. These are the types of accusations that completely ruin lives, and you find out someone made an accusation about this celebrity, oh, well, that's terrible, and then you find out, okay, like Kobe Bryant, I believe it was, with the girl in Colorado from the college, and she started saying that it was not consensual, and then you find out that she has a history of making accusations fraudulently, and witnesses being present each time to say otherwise to the situation, including people who know her saying that she does this to try and get money out of people that she's been with. Like it's how she's trying to make money, right? Nobody remembers that. I still see people throw around the fact that he had the charges and had to go to court and use it as evidence that he was one of these perpetrators. And you don't get the result out as much. Like the accusation is salacious and it sticks and it ruins lives. It's much harder to get that back afterwards. Much, much harder to get that back afterwards. Like they don't want to do that for people. It's too easy to condemn and forget.
It feels intrusive, but my mom says she's just checking me, so it's okay. It's very, very confusing. People don't believe that it happens. Even survivors question, like, wait, was this abuse? Once a person realizes, oh my God, I think I was being abused, a whole bunch of things come along with that.
Now, due to MDSA being rarely discussed in our culture, even in the context of SA, which is also just rarely discussed, there is limited research about this topic. Master's student Annie Lynn at Cal State University San Marcos explored the nature and impact of MDSA through analyzing Reddit posts on the subreddit MDSA and found in summary the following. Oftentimes, the society stigma surrounding MDSA and ability for abusers to manipulate those around them results in survivors feeling completely invalidated and further isolated, amplifying feelings of shame and guilt. It can often be difficult for survivors to grasp what they have endured, coupled with the fact that this abuse can start early in childhood before their daughter is able to cognitively understand what is happening. Now, Annie Lynn goes on to say, one of the most notable findings include the years, sometimes decades, it takes for survivors to begin to understand that they had been SA'd by their mothers. Most of the Reddit posts were tinged with confusion and desperate desire for answers. Treatment or healing cannot begin until survivors are able to understand they had undergone significant trauma, and that often needs to begin with greater societal recognition that this form of SA does actually exist. If you are questioning whether you are a survivor of MDSA, here are some key things to reflect on and consider talking to a mental health professional or counselor as provided by Jessica Lang. Being made to touch another's personal areas, GP with body parts or objects, gen stimulation, exposure to corn, or inappropriately watching a minor undress or use the bathroom. Many survivors of this also reported that their mothers checked their bodies, giving a private exam that was forceful, forcing them to...
Forceful. See, people will hear, my point is people hear this portion and they ignore this portion. People read this portion and ignore this portion, right? So it's like, when you look at the way that this list is written, this list makes sense if you're considering all of it, right? It makes sense. Like, you shouldn't be making out with family. That's fucking weird. That's not how you kiss family, right? So, like, there's certain things real strange. hands between your legs. Yeah, obviously, right? Like, some of this is just like obvious. This should be a problem, regardless of who's doing it to who. This should be a problem, right? As long like it. Come on now. This is a much better list to have, is my point. But just remember, these are key words. In some things, there are keywords like that. Like this, no real keywords there, right? But this is a keyword. This is a keyword.
To chest feed when they didn't want to, making out and forcing her hands in personal areas. Unfortunately, this is not the only case of SA that we will be discussing. If any of this resonated with you, I just want to make sure that you are given the proper resources to begin to understand what may have happened to you. Like, please don't panic right now. If you think that you may have been a victim of MDSA, DV, or any form of SA, you can always call the National SA Hotline 24/7.
Absolutely.
Or you can text or use the RAIN mobile platform. Please always remember.
Exactly. And she just kind of breezed right over what I've been like trying to hammer in because I know she wasn't going to talk about it, right? Don't start freaking out. Like, I'm saying it in the context of like judging other people, but it applies to you as well, looking at situations in your own life. So don't just jump to conclusions on it. Allow yourself to digest it. Talk about it with a professional if that's what you feel you need, obviously. And take it from there. Don't freak out over it. Don't panic because some of this seems to fit and go, oh my God, you're a monster. Like, don't do any of that. Don't do any of that. It's not going to work out very well in the end if that's how you respond to it, and you may misconstrue situations that weren't that way at all because you're jumping to a conclusion to put a label on a thing so that you have some sort of like an understanding of it to empower yourself in a situation that may not even be the situation you have a problem with. You may be placing blame on a situation that's not actually to blame for your current situation that you're putting it on. So get the help and truly go through the information openly and figure it out if it's you. It just same thing as when you're listening to other people. Just don't jump to conclusions. Be very specific with the list. Understand you have to check off numerous portions of the list and take it one step at a time. Don't start jumping to conclusions and placing people into those labels. Like, you may very well just destroy a relationship with, like, not a family member, or maybe it is a family member, but you may destroy a relationship with somebody in your life who you have a very close relationship with that's very meaningful to your life at the moment, but it's in a complicated place, and you may misplace blame on them for something that didn't happen and realize that's what happened at the end of your journey through your own like recovery and just growth, and end up in a situation where that person's not willing to be in your life anymore, family or not, because of the fact that that's how you were willing to treat them. So don't just jump to the conclusions and make assumptions and throw around accusations. Just digest and go through the process and take the correct steps as necessary. Don't allow yourself to freak out and start treating people differently because of it. Like, if you're in a dangerous situation, that's obviously a dangerous situation, yes, absolutely. But if not, take your time and digest.
Remember, taking steps to talk to someone about what you've survived is important, but only when you're ready.
Yep.
MC Ego Tango wants to know, does your printer run out of ink at the worst time?
Yeah, if you're not ready, you won't actually get help.
That didn't lead me anywhere productive.
All right, y'all, let's take another deep breath. Inhale the love and support that we all currently feel for Jannette, and exhale the absolute dumpster fire that is the entertainment industry. But wait, hold on, we're not done yet, because we have a guest lecture at Petty University today, so roll the intro. Given how heavy the rest of this doc has been, I wanted to include a whole ass section admiring the candor, humor, and pettiness of one Jannette McCurdy, who is honestly a woman after my own heart.
All right,
After
let's
all,
see it.
Again, petty is our love language, and honey, Jannette has some things to get off her chest, so may I present to you the Sam and Cat fiasco. Now, as we'll learn, the creator and Nickelodeon made some false promises. I know. Shocking. But
Amazing.
Jannette puts it best. She was pitched her own show, a spinoff of character Sam's life after iCarly, only to have it morph into a shared sitcom with Ariana Grande. I initially got a development deal with Nickelodeon for my own show a few years ago. I thought it was going to be just that, my own show. This was supposed to be Just Puckett, the harrowing tale of a brassy juvenile delinquent turned school counselor. Now it's some half-baked two-hander. Listen, bitch. It's the way she uses her grown folks words, and I am here for it. And she's not wrong. Like, the description of Sam and Cat alone is a mouthful. Let me just, let me just clear my throat, because y'all, this is some raw ass gonna give you salmonella if you eat too much dough half-baked bullshit. Trademarked. Prepare to meet the strangest match made in bestie heaven, Sam and Cat. Sam Puckett is loud, independent, as tough as nails, while Cat Valentine is sweet as pie and super flighty. But that doesn't stop this unlikely pair from becoming best buds and roomies. Together they're a power duo with a love for fun and adventure. Ha ha ha.
What? Why?
There's a reason y'all got canceled after
it's
one
not the
season.
Same at
Your
all.
log line is probably a good place to start. Now, one season runs aren't shocking, but this one feels shadier than usual, and I don't know, maybe it's because Ariana Grande got some special treatment, or maybe it's because of the hush money Nickelodeon allegedly offered Jannette to not go public with her experience at the network. But what do I know, right?
Which I'm going to say seems to be the trend when it comes to Dan Schneider and the kids he was working with. All right? There seems to be a lot of hush money offered around, don't it? Some people, like Ariana Grande. Next question.
Right. Just because it was all sunshine and rainbows and smiles on the red carpet doesn't
I may be
mean
wrong
the
about it
working
being Ariana
relationship
Grande,
was
but I'm pretty
solid.
sure it's her
Actually,
that I know
Jannette has
doing
been
that.
super upfront about the jealousy that she felt working with Ariana, which I think shows immense maturity to be so open about jealousy, partially due to Ari's special treatment, but mainly because of the two opposite career trajectories that were playing out before Jannette's eyes. It sounded a little something like this. Ariana is at the stage in her career where she's popping up on every 30 under 30 list that exists. And I'm at the stage in my career where my team is excited that I am the new face of Rebecca Bonbon, a tween clothing line featuring a cat with her tongue sticking out, sold exclusively at Walmart. I frequently make the mistake of comparing my career to Ariana's. I can't help it. So Ariana is over here pursuing her dream of being a pop star, missing rehearsals and shoot days to film music videos, while Jannette is forced to pick up the slack. Let me say that again. Ariana Grande, Little Miss Pop superstar herself, who has 3 years under her belt as Cat Valentine on Victorious, is missing shoots and leaving Jannette, who has been on Nickelodeon alone for 6 years, twice the amount of time as Ari has spent with the network, to pick up all of Ari's slack. And that's show business. It literally got to the point where in one episode of Sam and Cat, they trap Cat in a magic box so that Ari can miss filming, leaving Jannette to act alone with a box for most of the episode. Like,
you okay in there?
Yeah, it's kind of cozy. It reminds me of my closet where I used to hide from my brother.
Well, why would you hide from your brother?
The fuck?
Just, to survive.
When Sam and Cat met its end,
this is so
Nickelodeon
stupid.
had one final troglodyte move to make, and bitch, don't trust them hoes, Jannette, okay? In 2014, Jannette reveals that Nickelodeon offered her $300,000 as a thank you gift, which, like, bitch, where? Like, bitch, thank you who? Like, thank you for giving you her entire teenage experience, only for the creator to abuse his power and for her mom to ruin a chunk of her life? life? Yeah, sure, money will
Right.
fix that, it's all good. But this little, thank you gift had a catch to it. If she accepted it, Jannette could never talk about her experience with the network publicly. Literally hush money. What the f***? Nickelodeon is offering me...
Which makes you wonder, is this the same amount of money they offered everyone? Because some people very strictly refuse to discuss, right? So they've taken this deal. But were certain people offered more money? Because someone like Ariana Grande, right? They put her on a track where she was making more money, she was in more of a spotlight, and had more of a future. More of a potential to have a louder voice, to have more shine, to get more attention on what she has to say. And they created that. She was also probably just making more money all around because she had all these different avenues that she was getting the money from. Did you offer her a few million instead of a few 100,000? Because this is the problem with hush money. Right here. You have to offer somebody enough money to be quiet about what they went through or what they witnessed to make them not care enough about that entire situation anymore, to just not talk about it. Now, clearly, 300,000, not enough for Jannette, and I don't blame her. But how much are they offering everybody else who's staying quiet and it's working? And how many other people have had such things, not even just from Nickelodeon, but how many other people have had these types of contracted, these kind of offers throughout the entire industry, music, acting, etc., that never are even asked anything to make them seem as if they've had this offer, but they've had it many times.
$300,000 in hush money to not talk publicly about my experience on the show, my personal experience of the creator's abuse. This is a network with shows made for children. Shouldn't they have some sort of moral compass? Shouldn't they at least try to report to some sort of ethical standard?
You would
A bitch got beef. Girl, I've got beef on your behalf, okay? Professor Petty about to hold these asshats in detention.
I don't care how long it takes. I will keep you here all night.
We can't keep him past 4.
I will keep you here until 4.
And to add insult to injury, when the show was canceled, CNN reported that Ariana Grande's show was canceled. They didn't even include Jannette in the damn title.
And it was supposed to be her show.
Biscuit. And look at this photo that they used. It's almost like Nickelodeon or Dan Schneider did this to get back at Jannette for not taking the hush money. And honestly, the fact that Ariana posted such a glowing message thanking Dan and the network and hasn't come out to support Jannette about the evils that happened or say anything really makes me think.
So I think I was right. It is Ariana Grande who's always like, next. Okay, good.
That Ariana was probably also offered hush money, and she took it. I'm just saying, okay, in my opinion, just a bish is suspicious, okay?
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato.
This is where Jannette warms my petty little heart. So before leaving the acting world, Jannette wrote and produced a 4-part miniseries on YouTube called What's Next for Sarah, a show following the life of Sarah after her hit TV show is canceled. And if you thought our petty queen wasn't going to add in a nod to Ariana, girl! The bow, the ponytail, the singing, the name Gloriana. I am deceased. I just lay me to rest, okay? I'm done.
Oh no.
But that's not even
the
the
best
best
hilarious.
Best thing that's ever happened to me. I'm so happy. I'm doing so well. I've never been better.
Wow, Gloriana, your life sounds awesome.
It is. It's amazing. I'm just so glad I can be friendly to these little animals, those poor little things.
Well, you're carrying a leather bag, so that's not really friendly.
Commentary on Ariana, I mean Gloriana, thriving as Jannette's character is literally having an existential crisis. The vegan jokes. I know this is satire, but even if her life was like half of this, like a third this bad, I would have lost my shit way before Nickelodeon pulled the plug, okay? I would have been offering Nickelodeon hush money, not the other way around, okay? Professor Petty has entered the chat. Around and find out. Now, for the record, Jannette actually hopes that Ariana reads her memoir, and honestly, I think that's pretty impressive. It's hard as hell to admit that you're jealous of someone, let alone admit it to, like, literally everyone on the planet.
Did you send Ariana a copy of the book? Did you give her a heads up? Are you expecting to hear from her?
I don't know if she'll read the book or not, but I think it's a really entertaining read, regardless of who you are. So I hope she does. Yeah.
Jesus. She's like, yeah, you know what? Fuck her. I don't care. Jesus. What is this? Is this a Tekken? It is a Tekken. Right? No? It is. Ooh.
SoFi is helping me get my money right to achieve my...
I didn't know they were making a new Tekken game. It's been forever since I saw a new Tekken game, I feel like.
I absolutely felt violated, and eventually accepting that was the most, I think, integral piece
Actually, I have to be.
Healing and recovery.
So, as you've probably figured out, Jannette has taken a massive step back from acting. But before the iCarly stans come out angrily, like yelling at me in the comments, I do want to acknowledge Jannette's friendship with Miranda Cosgrove, a fellow actor. Mostly because I think it's super heartwarming, but also because it can teach us all a valuable lesson about not quite knowing what's going on under the surface. So, Miranda herself acknowledges the struggle of being a child star, saying that, I mean, having an adult's job when you're a child is a hard thing to do. I totally understand Jannette's perspective 100%. Now, when it comes to their friendship and the abuse that Jannette was suffering behind the scenes, Miranda had this to say: "You don't expect things like that from the person in the room who's making everyone laugh." As far as Jannette goes, her love for Miranda has never been...
It's always the people who make you feel the best that suffer the worst. Let that sink in.
A secret.
Oh my god, I love Miranda to pieces. I always will. She has such a special place in my heart. She helped me grow as a person and heal as a person, and I hope I did the same for her, and I just love her so much. We totally still keep in touch, not as often as we used to. We used to be attached to the hip, so it was very much that kind of relationship throughout, honestly, probably until our mid-20s, but now we're all grown up in our different directions, but I'm always rooting for her.
Adulting, and she did speak out on your book. Has she reached out to you privately to discuss some of the topics in your book?
The last I heard from her, she said she was so excited to read it and sent just a very supportive, lovely text about reading the book. I can't wait for her to read it. I think she'll really like it. I think she'll laugh a lot. I think she'll relate to a lot.
Even when the news of the iCarly reboot came along, Miranda encouraged Jannette to join the cast again, going as far to let Jannette know that the studio agreed to match the amount they were paying Miranda to return to the show. And despite the generous offer, Jannette stayed true to her word, saying, "There are things more important than money, and my mental health and happiness fall under that category." Now, clearly the two have remained friends, even spending Thanksgiving of 2021 together. But for Jannette, taking a break from acting to heal was the best decision she could have made for herself. And she writes, "So much of my life has felt so out of my control for so long, and I'm done with that being my reality. I want my life to be in my hand, not an ED or a casting director's or an agent's or my mom's. Mine." As for being glad her mom died, Jannette means it. Coming to terms with the fact that her mom was abusive was hard enough, and it made the grieving process that much more difficult. As she explains to Good Morning America,
"Did your perspective on your mom change at all through the writing process?"
Oh my god, so much. So much. Grief for me toward my mom used to be really complicated. I'd feel really angry and confused at why I felt angry that I was grieving her. I felt like she didn't deserve my tears and my sadness and she was abusive. But it simplified in a really relieving way and now feels like I'm able to just miss her. And I think that is only possible because of the healing that happened through the writing of the book.
I felt that in my soul, honey. Now, Jannette is continuing to release new episodes of her podcast, Empty Inside, as well as performing her one-woman show, I'm Glad My Mom Died, on a sold-out run at Lyric Hyperion Theater. Her work has been featured in the Hollywood Reporter, Short of the Week, Florida Film Festival, and many, many more, which is just lovely to see. But most importantly, she says that she's happy and healthy. And honestly, as much of an impact as Jannette had on countless childhoods, I think she said it best here.
I am ultimately proud of my decision there, wherever it came from. Even if it was informed by self-righteousness, I think that I did something that was really hard to do. Oh my God, it makes me emotional. I'm proud of myself.
Why? Why proud of yourself?
I think I've chosen a path of integrity. And it hasn't always been easy.
I couldn't agree more. Class dismissed.
Integrity is not easy at all. Integrity is very fulfilling and great, but it is not easy by any stretch of the imagination.